This is Bleav in Buckeyes. I'm Bryant Browning with All-American quarterback Chimdi. Chekwa. Great show for you guys today. We got one of our guys from the 2010 team, a captain with me and Chim on our Buckeye squad. Our guy, Dane Sanzenbacher. How you doing, man? What's up, Dane?
I'm good. Do you call Chim the quarterback?
Cornerback.
Oh,
cornerback.
I heard All-American quarterback.
It rolled off pretty quick. All-American quarterback.
So, yeah.
All-American quarterback. Yeah, I get to it right.
Been.
I didn't know if it's because he was like the quarterback of this show. Because I was like, oh, that's a cool intro.
I stay on defense, Dan. It doesn't matter what the environment is. I stay on the defensive side of the ball.
That's right. That's right.
He runs the show. Cool.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm great, man.
It's good, man. It's good to see you, man. Glad that you joined the show. Obviously, it's the off season, but we always got Ohio State football to talk about. Chim, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. It's it's warming up a little bit here in Columbus. Maybe it's temporary, but I'm going to take each warm day and celebrate it. So I'm feeling good today, man.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, so, I mean, over the last couple of weeks, we had some comments. Like, we've been putting out our YouTube videos. We've been having some great guests the last several weeks. And someone reached out and wrote a comment, said, hey, can you guys give our offensive grade going into the spring? And we was like, who's better to do this than Dane Sanzenbacher? One of our offensive guys, a wide receiver for Ohio State, NFL vet, 4 years, come on to the show, talk Ohio State football, because he's always locked in like we all are, right? So, I mean, Dane, you pick. What position do you want to start first? Is it receivers, O-line, quarterback?
Yeah, we can start with mine because it's the easiest one. I'm happy to grade this receiver group. I mean, short of having everybody coming back, you have to feel really good about this group. I mean, to me, that they're an A group. I don't think there's any question. They're one of the strongest receiver groups coming back, definitely in the conference. Obviously, you got Jeremiah Smith's the guy. But, both Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis played a ton, had a ton of experience making a national championship run. They've got to come in with all the confidence in the world. And they played really well last year. So, I mean, receiver is easy. To me, I don't know that there's probably not a stronger position right now as far as in the offensive group.
Yeah.
That you would feel better about. So they've got that. The bigger question is the guy throwing to him. One, who's that going to be, and what does that look like? I mean, that's the biggest question coming into this season. It's always an exciting one.
Yeah.
I mean, having the quarterback talk coming in, it was exciting last year with Will. We didn't know what we were getting, and he evolved throughout the year. But obviously, a lot of people think it's Julian Sayin gonna make that push. Probably, I would say safe to say he's going to get the first crack at it. That's the more interesting one, and also that's tough to grade. How do you grade guys that you haven't really seen?
Yeah, I think the quarterback is interesting. But even before we go to the quarterback, the wide receiver coach, the guy who coaches the wide receivers, that leads that group, brings in all these great players, Brian Hartline is going to be calling the offensive plays as well. So I want to get your perspective on Hartline, a guy we played with, right, being the primary play caller for the offense, with what you already said was an A group with the receivers. What do you think this offense looks like in terms of play calling?
He's just going to throw it. He's just going to throw it the whole time. He's going to have like the NFL blitz playbook, just the bomb. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, he's obviously been around the program for a while. He did. Yeah. He was pass game coordinator for a while. I don't even think he was last year, but before Chip got there.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been around it. Now he's still staying in the receiver room, right?
I believe so.
To our knowledge, yes, we believe so.
Yeah. That was my understanding too. So, I mean, I think he got a ton of experience, and he said so himself this past few years, and even this last year. Essentially having Coach Day and Chip to learn from. So, I mean, my thought would be you're going to see them pull a lot of stuff that worked last year and try to roll it over. But yeah, man, how he's loaded that room, it's freaky, really. Like in the past 5 years, you don't see that kind of talent roll through one position at one school that often. So, I mean, I think it's a really smart move to go ahead and promote him, keep him in-house as much as you can, not only because he's a He's a Buckeye. He
Yeah.
wants to stay here. Any excuse you give him to stay here, he'll stay here. But yeah, how he's recruited and then turned those guys into, even better than when they walked in. So yeah, it's an exciting group. And I think, especially having him at the helm now, he's going to take every opportunity to get the ball in these guys' hands.
Yeah, so you mentioned the quarterbacks, and obviously that's the big question. I think we all agree that the receivers are a group, right? And bringing in a new quarterback, and I want to get everybody's perspective on how we grade these quarterbacks currently coming in. But in bringing in, or at least breaking in, a new starter at the quarterback position, what do you think is important, in terms of how the play calls are and what they have to make it easier, or at least make that transition go a little bit more smoothly for a new quarterback starting his first year at Ohio State? Like, big time program, and a season that could potentially extend beyond the regular season into a playoff as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. You obviously, building confidence is the obvious answer. But how do you do that? How do you get a guy rolling? Quarterback at Ohio State is a tough job. It's a tough job, and it's more than just the plays that you make. You have to instill a confidence in the team, in the fan base, in the city, in the coaches. That's a heavy burden. That's why I think a guy like Julian Sayin, who has a lot of the chatter behind him and had a great spring last year, that really got that buzz going. People were talking about him. So, I think, and not that, Lincoln's been there, he's been in the conversation. He's had good springs. But I think, Julian being able to ride that wave, it just seems to be a fit and something that would be an overall positive for that offense, that you have somebody that everybody seems to believe in, that can really step up and make plays. Yeah, how you get him going? Yeah, he's going to have to get himself going. Coaches, you can put him in the right position, but it's just going to come down to, you have a good spring. But then again, what does spring tell you? At some point you got to have a good spring, good camp, but you're going to have to go when the bullets are flying. So that's what's so exciting though about new quarterbacks. They are so important to your team. And when you got a guy that's, redshirt freshman, what do you have? I don't know.
Yeah. B, what you think? What you think about that quarterback competition?
Yeah, I think so. Regards to the competition, I feel like it, like you say, you want them to get them comfortable and get them rolling, Dane. I think it should be as hard as possible on these guys. I think you should be kind of coaching them as tough as nails to try to see really, what they feel like under the pressure, who can handle that pressure, right? Who could kind of take it and continue to rise and improve and grow from there. Obviously, I think so. This will be Sands was second year in the program. This will be Lincoln's third. And it's funny, we assume that Hartline's going to do a lot of throwing the ball to his 5-star wide receivers. But what if he don't? What if he kind of takes a little bit of a piece from Chip Kelly, where he wants his quarterback to be, have that ability to kind of step up in the pocket and be able to make some plays with his feet. Lincoln's the bigger, more athletic guy. So, it kind of leads a little bit to it. Now, in my heart of hearts, I think Hartline's going to throw the ball. But what if, right? He could have learned some things and could see the safety in having a nice, strong run game and your quarterback being able to kind of step up and make plays there as well. I think at the end of the season, Coach Day, in the press conference, kind of started talking about the season. He mentions that, Will Howard was the perfect example of what you need to do if you want to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State, right? Come in, take the coaching well, improve, grow, be a leader on and off the field. And obviously he took us all the way to be a national champion. And I think, fair enough, it's tough and hard enough for these guys, right, to follow behind a national championship quarterback. But you got to figure out a way to kind of take what you learned from him in that situation, apply it to your game, improve, and really let it play out on the field.
Well, Coach Day he said he did that with Will too. He said he was really hard on him on purpose, really, because he wanted to see how he would react to that. So I would imagine that's going to kind of be rinse and repeat especially this spring. But
Yeah.
going into camp, I would imagine those first weeks, those quarterbacks are going to feel like there's nothing they can do right because he wants to see who's who.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and
I wanted to ask you about, before we go on though, I wanted to ask you about the true freshman, right? We got Dane St. Clair coming in, 5-star recruit. I think 2 or 3 top quarterback in the nation, right? Can he make some noise here? I'm sure he's already on campus and picking up things. Now you're talking about the biggest guy. He's the biggest guy. I think he's 6'4", 6'5" at that quarterback position. I mean, can he shake things up and get himself into some play?
Anybody can. You know, you don't know. It's a good problem to have when you have a quarterback like that coming in. And yeah, we haven't even talked about him yet, right? You had to bring him out. So those are good problems. You know, you never know, but like I said, it's a tough job. It's a tough job to walk in as a true freshman and do it. And especially, I mean, look at our schedule this year. Who are you going to open up with? I mean, you don't get to walk into like a warm-up game.
Right.
So that's why, I mean, I think experience is going to be, even if it's just have been around the program, is going to be really important. I'd be surprised if St. Clair ended up being the guy, but you don't know. I mean, he's shown everything he need to show in high school, and he'll definitely get a shot.
Yeah, it's hard to start a true freshman at Ohio State. It's very, very, very hard. There's so much that comes. You mentioned how much comes with the quarterback position, winning the fans over, all the scrutiny and all those things. It would be tough to start your career playing against Texas at Ohio State after you just played against high school kids. I mean, that'd be an unbelievable beginning to your career, honestly. I do think I want to go back to Lincoln Kingholz for a second because, you know, I do think Julian Sain is the one because he won the spot last year, right? So he is the one that is in line to take the starting role. And I watched him last spring as well. The kid could throw the ball. He could go out there, he could throw, he could make all the throws. He's very talented. But at the end of the day, when you line up and you got the pressure of the defense and all of the things that are thrown at you, and just the pressure of leading the Ohio State team, et cetera. I mean, the guy who takes that job and is able to execute on the field and give the team the best chance of winning is going to end up with it. So if Lincoln is able to develop and grow from what he was last year, you mentioned his ability as an athlete. If he's able to show that to the coaches, that he gets his opportunity, even if he's the second guy, it's a long season. That opportunity could potentially happen at any point during the season. So I wouldn't count anybody out, especially when none of them have shown the ability to be that starter so far. So I think it's wide open.
Yeah. All right, y'all want to talk about the fat guys now? You want to get to the offensive line, man?
Why don't you kick us off there?
Yeah, man, I'll take us off the line. So, I mean, we didn't give a grade to the quarterbacks. What do we want to give them?
I'll give them incomplete. I
give them a grade, man. Incomplete sound? No, man, it's not elementary school. You got to get a numbered grade.
Yeah, as far as, to me, you can only look at this group as like what you would want out of it. Obviously, a returning starter, okay, then you could say, like, if you had Will coming back, okay, you're an A. I mean, you guys, a national championship winning quarterback.
Yeah.
But as far as a group, like, if you're Ohio State, I think you're in a really good spot. I think, like, you're in, like, an A-, B+ type of spot. Type of position as that
group, man. We don't know these guys. They're a C group.
You don't know.
I'm going C. I'm going C plus because I give them the plus because of positivity, right?
They got 2 5 stars in the world,
right? I mean, to me, that's a B+, A- type of situation. You've got options. Yeah. You've got guys that I love have upside. Like, I hear what you're saying, Jim, and like somebody could come in when the bullets start flying. But when you have dudes that are like, this guy's super talented, that tends to be the ones that rise to the top in this game, especially at the Ohio State level. So, I mean, maybe I'm willing to give them a little bit more because I trust some of the stars by their names, but we'll see.
I'll go with the B-.
I talked
just taking into it. You talked me into the B-, taking into account the receiver group, right?
There you
go. At the same time, you're influenced by who you have around you as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, a 5-yard pass to Jeremiah Smith could be a 70-yard touchdown, right? So depending on. And the other thing, so what I do want from hardline, and there's pass plays that I call they like run plays. Right? It's technically a pass, but these receivers are put in a position to go make the play, catch the ball and run. Maybe screen passes, shallow crossing routes where the guy can catch and run. I want to see a decent amount of those this season. We saw more this past season with Chip Kelly's offense. Prior to that, I feel like they didn't do a lot of it. You have to go back to Urban Meyer when he was a coach where you saw a lot of that. But I feel like that makes it a lot easier on the quarterback to simple throws, things that you can execute over and over again. But stuff that still puts stress on the defense. If you got one guy who could go deep over the top, and you got another guy who can make plays in space, that stresses out the defense and makes it easy on the offense to make some plays. So I think you talked me into a B- with this group with you got A receivers, right?
Yeah. You're welcome.
And they all,
Right answer, yeah.
Now I'm gonna talk you to bring it back down to a C. Now we got to talk about our unknown offensive tackles.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Now we got to bring it back down to a C because, to be honest, our offensive line, interior, we got a lot of experience, right? We're returning Carson Hinsman, played guard, played center for us, started a lot of games. We have Luke Montgomery, who played late, right? He didn't really start playing to the playoffs at that guard position. Played fantastic. We have Tegra, who started a whole season at right guard now. Played well enough. I think he had some second team All Big Ten honors, son of the nature.
Yeah.
Had a strong year. We had Austin Sherfield. Played a lot of ball. Started off the season when Diamond Jackson was injured. Played a lot of ball once Diamond Jackson went to left tackle. Played a ton on the interior. Our tackles, we lost them both. Obviously, to the NFL, Diamond Jackson kicked out the left tackle for the long haul to replace Simmons once he went down with an injury. Right tackle Josh Fryer held that position all season. Did a fantastic job at right tackle for us in his second year being a starter there, but now he's gone. And so now everything's up in the air. We went to the transfer portal. We brought a couple guys in. Philip Daniels, who's from Ohio, but he's been playing this ball at Minnesota, starting at the right tackle position there. And then we have Ethan. I'm going to butcher his last name, Chim.
Onyanwa.
Say it again?
Onyanwa.
There you go. That's our guy. He's coming over from Rice. A really big kid, a big rah-rah guy from some of his clips on the internet. But I don't know. Watching him play, it might be some limitations to his game. So interior, I say we got some experience. Outside, up in the air, and that's what keeps that quarterback grade as a C. I'm going to have to give our offensive line grade until I get to see it with my eyes. New offensive line coach as well.
Yeah.
B-, C+ in that range as well. They got a lot to prove. I mean, the offensive tackles, they start giving them sacks. We all going to be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah.
We got to know what these guys could do.
Yeah, I think you convinced me. I'm bringing that quarterback grade back down to
I might actually bring it back down to
what? You supposed to
No, because I'm thinking that's a really good point, and that's a combination of it's nice to have a young quarterback when you have a veteran line.
Mm.
You can kind of get away with it. I mean, you remember Terrell Pryor? We kind of got away with it because we had he was the only young dude. So you can hide in there. Having everybody learning at once, that's a little tougher task. And you don't have a fifth-year guy coming in like Will Howard to say okay, well, we can make up for just by being a fifth-year guy, I can make up for a little bit of inexperience on the line, just getting guys in the right positions. So, all right, we'll pull it down. We'll pull it down too.
You got the running.
It's in the B range.
So let's look at the running backs. Let's see if the running backs help. Right? You got.
So we got CJ Donaldson. That's a transfer over from West Virginia. We got James Peopleback. We got Sam Williams Dixon, who jumped in the portal. He's from here in Pickerton. So he's a Buckeye. Jumped in the portal, but he jumped on back. He came on home.
Prodigal son. The prodigal son came back. Came back home.
And then also we got Anthony Rogers, true freshman out of Alabama, as in Bo Jackson out of Northeast Ohio, who also is a true freshman. So we got a lot of guys. A lot of names.
So CJ Donaldson is a big bat.
Yeah.
And then James Peoples, some of those guys are more quicker, faster back. So, I guess the only guy who's a known commodity at this point is Donaldson, right? He's the one who's played a lot of football, and he's been pretty good for West Virginia. It doesn't feel like Travion Henderson of last year, right? And I'm missing who's the other guy. I'm so sorry. And Judkins, right? It doesn't feel like that combination, which is really an elite level combination.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I was just thinking when I'm looking at this. Like, is it unfair to compare to what last year's roster was?
It is.
It was like that was you were stacked all the way through, and it played out that way through the season. So I mean, you look at this one, like this looks more like this is more human. This is a normal roster. Normal for top of like Ohio State standards. Still on the higher end of the league, but there's some mortals so far.
Grade the mortals.
Well, we don't. I mean, there's unknowns. I think how the tackles play could change a lot of these people's grades. Yeah. I mean, if I had to put like the importance, it's those two transfers. Like what shows up there, because then if those guys end up playing like veteran tackles and are solid, well, then things aren't so scary. Then if you got those two in, now you've got guys that have played a lot. You know, Luke Montgomery's played a lot. Hinsman played a lot. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's the shift. Running backs, we don't know until we know, but we've seen a lot of guys have a lot of success in this offense behind a good line. So, I mean, and Peoples impressed me when he had the ball a little bit. With the little bit he got to touch it, but how much are you going to get to touch it with those two guys there? So, I mean, I haven't seen B, you said you watched Donaldson play a little bit, right?
Yeah, he's a I mean, he's a big guy, strong guy. He hasn't had a 1,000-yard season, but he has played a lot of football the last 2 years at West Virginia. I think he's averaging about 4.5 a carry, which not overly impressive, right? But West Virginia teams they're not their best teams. I think historically, as we know, as they got a new coach coming this season because they're having some issues, right? So he's definitely a capable guy, very strong guy. Looks like obviously I haven't seen him without pads, working out, but he looks like a guy that probably carries a ton of muscle with him. So definitely well built. But we got to see who he is at Ohio State because, we might do things a little bit differently. We might need him to be faster and less powerful, right? We need him to be a guy to be on the edge.
He's a big back. He requires a change of pace type guy, though, like a James Peoples or someone else in combination. But he's a big back. You like that they brought in a veteran guy for protection and other things that are also important to the running back position. But it's definitely it's definitely a drop off from last year.
Yeah, that's
right. And as you start looking across positions, offensive line, running back, offensive tackle, running back, those question marks can potentially impact a new starting quarterback as well. So my C+, it's a C right now. But so there is another position we haven't talked about. Tight end.
Right.
Tight end.
Yeah, so tight end, I mean, you would assume the projected starter is our transfer out of Purdue. Max Clear caught 51 balls for them last season. Built really well, built really athletic. Should be able to make some noise here in our offense. They have him listed at 6'4", 240. I see him more of a route guy. I don't know how much blocking he's going to be doing on the edge and things of that nature, but obviously at Ohio State, we get creative with that, right? We put a guy in motion, give him some space, and he can kind of hit a guy and make some blocks of that nature. But I don't know. He'll be leading the bunch. And then obviously we got guys returning and Will Carmack. We have, is it Thurman? Blanking on
Jelani Thurman?
Yeah, Jelani Thurman. Yeah. He'll be returning as well. This will be his third season here at Ohio State. So we got essentially, it sounds weird, but we kind of got a lot of experience at the tight end position.
Yeah,
we don't say that often.
That's why I'm saying it's hard to compare this group to last year's group. But I feel like if we were to do a breakdown probably of a lot of the top of the Big Ten teams, everybody is kind of going to be replacing a lot of guys. And I think maybe that's just the nature of this version of college football is that you're going to have everybody's trying to build the best one-year roster that they can. So a lot of people are going into the season with, I'm not really sure, but could be really good. I mean, on paper, maybe these tackles are both, home runs.
Yeah.
Julian Sayin has all the talent you would need. Now, that's the one that I think I think that'll end up being a good thing for Ohio State to have a younger quarterback and hopefully develop him.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then an experienced guy in Donaldson, if he comes in and ends up being a stud, you don't, it could end up being a really strong roster in hindsight when we get to midway through next season. But yeah, I think a lot of teams right now in the Big Ten, probably across the country, if they were going to look like, well, compared to last year, I think the narrative would be, well, compared to last year, I really don't know. You're going to have a lot of new guys.
Yeah. I mean,
and what a luxury it is to, be able to go find a tight end who played at another Big Ten school in Purdue and say, you know what, come over here to Ohio State.
Not fair. You just took one of their best players.
Now you're a tight end room.
I'm gonna tell you right now, the best player at Purdue. That was
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I mean, if I was them, I'd be mad.
Yeah.
But just, I guess it is what it is.
He the tight end is a very, very. It's to have a good tight end like that is great for a young quarterback, right? A big target, somebody in the middle of the field, passes that are closer to the line of scrimmage, right? And to be able to have that guy come over from Purdue, from Ohio State is just a big benefit right there to be able to plug that guy in with a group that's already pretty solid at tight end. So I think I'll give the tight end group a solid B.
Yeah, I think that feels like well for them. But obviously we're talking about all this because spring ball is really it's funny. It's like the season just ended, but spring ball's around the corner. I think it's only a couple more weeks before they kind of kick off spring ball here at Ohio State. And obviously it's college football has changed, right? There's a lot of things are changing. People are making different decisions. And one of those decisions that some of our big programs are not having spring games. Texas just announced, what's that? Who else said they weren't having a spring game? Was it Nebraska, maybe?
Yeah, they were one of the first ones to say they weren't.
Yeah, Nebraska. And then also USC stated they also are not having a spring game. Now, it seems like it's for different – some are saying for different reasons. Nebraska was up front. We not having a spring game because at the end of spring last year, we lost a lot of guys in the portal. People, I guess, watched the roster who didn't play a lot, got on the phone, got them out to school. They lost a lot of their depth. Texas is saying they're doing it because the season just ended. They kind of need to rest their guys. They don't want to be ramping up so much and getting them in too many real game live situations. And, further causing injury and things of that nature. Don't know about USC situation. I just know there was a part of the article. I guess what's your guys' thoughts on that? Going into spring, but not letting it lead up to a spring game.
Yeah, I have multiple. First one is like, if I was the Nebraska guys, I'd be pissed. It's just like, maybe there's a better opportunity for me. Like, what if we could watch the Nebraska spring game and be like, yeah, actually that guard looks pretty good there. Right. So I get it from a coaching perspective, but I'm sure some of those guys want to get discovered. So that's another thing of the changing game. I think that as a player, and you guys know, like, spring can be a drag. Really? Spring is for the coaches. Spring is so they can like get to know who they got. If you have young competitions going on, you get that in. But as a player, so I mean, I could get it from Texas perspective if they are saying we just need the rest, because it's tough to get there mentally, especially after that long season. Mm-hmm. You don't want guys getting hurt. So that's on that side, I could see that. As far as the work getting done, the spring game itself was always just kind of like a theater. It's always kind of just like, you do a draft. It's like kind of fun. The work already got done, though. Right. I mean, it is just more of a showcase type thing. And I think even that might be what Ohio State's kind of calling their deal this year. Yeah. But that work will still get done. I mean, so I don't see it having a huge impact with guys changing it. I would hope they still put something out there, because I know, especially here, that's always been, the spring game has always been like a both like finally we're out of winter and there's football to watch. And also it was kind of like I don't know, more affordable way for people to see Ohio State. I mean, not everybody gets to go to the games. The spring game is a lot of people's thing, so I hope they still are putting something out there that is entertaining and that you can fund and that brings fans in to kind of kick off part of the season. But yeah, it'll be an interesting time. We'll learn a lot from our young guys, but I would have been perfectly fine if we would have just bypassed spring ball when I would have been. Yeah, let's just fight it out in camp, guys. I'm good on spring.
I would have loved it. I would have loved it. It's so, to me, the spring game was always for the fans. Like, this is something we're doing for the fans, and it's a good thing for the fans. As you mentioned, it's something that a lot of people can come to, experience the horseshoe and all that stuff, get to see the guys out there. As a fan, you're not really getting to see all the spring practices and stuff, so you finally really get to see the guys during the spring game. But by the time I got to the spring game, my legs were dead. I didn't really want to play. It was just, let's go out there. And honestly, a lot of times I have a bad game. I have a bad spring game.
And that's what I was thinking too when Matt Rule said that. I was like, who looks good at the spring game?
Right. The spring game is
like I don't know that's. I would have to fact check. Did people actually take your players because what they saw at the spring game?
Yeah, it's kind of quick to believe, right? Because it almost
feels remember ever having like a standout spring game.
Yeah,
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, I feel like the guy was already on somebody's list.
Yes,
like before
they were already.
They was already on the list. They had already talked to somebody. Because you're watching the spring game, it's like you're looking at one way. Like, okay, maybe you're the backup, and you're seeing this guy go out first. So, he's the backup. Maybe he's upset. Let's get him on the phone and get.
Yeah,
kind of like maybe, right? And then you go out and have a fantastic
starter.
game.
I mean, how we did it, you drafted. There was guys that were, and maybe I'm sure they've changed it up, and you can do it differently if you're doing like if you want your true ones.
Yeah.
But when we did it, you weren't even playing with all the starters. Like we drafted it down the middle, so you might not even get the who is the number one, who's the number two. It's more like we're just. We're playing a game out here. We're just playing.
So spring ball there was always key competitions for younger players, primarily.
Yeah.
You had those competitions. I know my first spring, after I redshirted the first year, that next year, I knew going into the spring, like my opportunity to get on the field was now. This is my opportunity now. I got to beat guys out now and at least be a second string. If I'm the two guy now, I'm primed to be the next guy up. After, guys, either if a guy gets hurt or a guy comes out or the next year when those guys graduate. But the competition really was a jersey scrimmages. Like, it was practices and the scrimmages. Those were the things that were most important. Did you practice well? And then when we actually did a scrimmage, that's what my opportunity to compete and win a position. By the time I got to the spring game, whatever I had to put out there, I already did. Like, my work was already done.
Yes.
And now the spring game, we go out there and we run around. We shake some hands, we kiss some babies, we sign some autographs, and then we go, football's finally over for a little bit, and we rest our legs and get our legs back. So, I think college starts to move more towards NFL, OTAs, mini camp type approach. And that's just the reality of it, right? You have a long season. I don't want the
reality of it, Chim. Okay?
You got Dane.
Years listening to this for the reality of it. That's
the reality. If you finish football, here's the thing. If you finish football in January, finish football at end of January 20th or whatever, you can't go right back out there and start banging for another few weeks in spring. It just at some point you are destroying the body. The body needs to recover. This isn't high school sports anymore. Like, these guys are competing against each other, high level and, fast on the field, beating up their bodies. There has to be a period of recovery, competition in their recovery. And I just think we're seeing that college football experience really move more closer to an NFL type offseason.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I think that's probably as much of it than any, stealing players or whatever. Maybe that's a piece of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a really good point that you're moving just towards it. It's unnecessary work on some level. Like, it is necessary to fight things out and get an idea of what your roster is. But you have to have a rest period when the season's getting longer. The games are getting more important. There's more intense games deeper into the season. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see in the next everything is going to be interesting to see in the next 5-10 years. But especially, what off season turns into, what spring looks like, down the road when it's not a traditional, actually going through all these practices. I would have to imagine, like you said, Chim, it just lightens up a little bit more.
Yeah. We're talking about Ohio State, who just played, 16 games this season, right? 16 games. And you had to do that to be national champion. And for the time being, it's not, whoever want to be national champion, it's not going to get easier, right? You're going to have to play a long season to get that done. Yeah, man. So, Chim, did you want to get into some of the other topics?
Yeah, let's hit one more topic.
All right, well, one more topic then. Since we talked about it in spring and how the season is changing, things are changing, right? We're now starting to see teams pull out of some of these big games to start off the season. You've seen Nebraska in the home with Tennessee. It's been rumored that Ohio State may let some of their big name games, like the Texas game. Obviously, we're having it this year, but games of that sort of nature go in the beginning of the season. What's your thoughts? I mean, like,
cancel it.
Yeah, I mean,
cancel the Texas game. Cancel the Texas game. I don't like playing a top 10, top 5 team to start the season. I don't like it. To me, it doesn't make sense. We've got a new quarterback that's about to be out there, right? It's going to be his first game starting for Ohio State, and he's got to go out there in this atmosphere and play against a top team with not being able to ease himself into it, not be able to get comfortable. I don't personally like it. I don't see, outside of TV ratings and all that stuff, I don't see who it benefits.
There's
right?
nothing
You can get
outside
the TV ratings.
Of TV ratings, Chim. There's nothing.
You can get the TV ratings at the end of the year in the playoffs after you get yourself in a good position. So
what about the month of September, man? I gotta get go there, man.
Listen, if you put Ohio State in the big noon, I don't care who they play. If they play a high school team, we're all going to tune in. We're all going to watch. Everybody's going to watch Jeremiah Smith play football. Okay, so I prefer a few what I call preseason games: Miami, Ohio, Toledo, Youngstown State. Right, at least to start the season, and then let's get into some of the big time matchups. But that's just me personally.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm with you on that. Now, I don't feel great about this version of Ohio State with this many young guys, be it like having to walk into that as your first game. But one of the great things about college is like, but what if it goes well? That's like legends are made of. What if Julian or one of these young quarterbacks come out and just like their coming out party is against Texas in the first game of the year? That's the flip side. And that only exists at the college level of you actually don't know when you get this opportunity. I mean, I could see why teams are kind of moving towards let's keep it in conference. That's traditionally how it was. We always had, I think almost every year, in the, late 2010s, we at least had one big game in the first 3. Now, it was never the very first one. That is tough. Yeah, but I don't know. I can't come back on how much I complained last year of having so many games that didn't really matter. Mm-hmm. To me, that seems like a waste. If you have, now obviously you want to win them, and I guess it's a part of, how many times do you want to be a 20 plus point favorite in a game? To me, that's not even really that's not a game. So I would rather and it's unfortunate that you're going to be punished in the scheme of college football now if you lose those games and your record is harder. But as a fan, and I guess kind of as a player too, that's kind of part of it. You're not going to win every game, but you at least want to. The point is to match up and see where you're at against somebody else's talent. And you don't see that against your preseason games.
Yeah, so let me quickly put it into perspective, right? So Nebraska is not going to be 20-point favorites against all these teams, right? Nebraska, Ohio State and Nebraska are two different types of schools, right? Nebraska, Tennessee, when they cancel these games, they got a lot of games where it could go either way. They got a lot of games where it go either way. Ohio State is different, where only got a few games a year where you really are like, okay, this is going to be a matchup where they could potentially lose, right? So it's a little bit different with Ohio State. But still, personally, I like a few because to me, I feel like both teams are better prepared week 3. Texas and Ohio State, you work out some kinks. The team week 1, no team is the same team week 1 that they are week 5. It's just no team is.
And
right?
It's unfair to make a judgment too at that team. The first time they've been out there against that opponent, it's really tough to if you lose that game, say try to pigeonhole who that team is because yes, they'll be different 2 weeks down the road. You're right. There is a different level of like, okay, is it Ohio State versus maybe Nebraska saying like, well, we're giving ourselves the best chance to stay in it. But I mean, I don't blame them. The way it's setting up, if you're trying to look out for your own program, say, well, we have a conference and we'll try to win as many games in our conference as we can. And what's the benefit of going to play these big out of conference games?
No.
There's not really one. You're going to have to build in if the powers that be, if whatever TV or the conferences want those matchups, you're going to have to build in an incentive to have them because like how it is now, I think you're probably right running from them, even though I don't really agree with it. And it's not like what I was accustomed to, but it's not the players making the players would be fine with it. The players be like, okay, we're doing all this. We're planning to win every game we play and we don't really care who it is. That's just a player's mindset. But administration, I could see him saying like, oh, well, why don't we just try to make this as easy as possible and try to squeeze into one of those playoff spots. That's the name of this current version of college football.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, all right. Like I say, like you say, Nebraska, a lot of games could go either way. But you got Ohio State on the schedule, and you got I don't know who else is good in the Big Ten. Oregon.
Penn State.
All right, we'll probably lose these 2 games here, but we can just win the rest. You got an argument that we could be in the playoff. We throw a Tennessee on here. Now we might lose 3, and now they're not going to consider us because, once again, we're still Nebraska. So, like you said, till a change is made, that you bring in more of a strength of schedule or, something of that nature I think affect this kind of stuff.
There's part of it like the 12-team playoff has forced this, though, because it was never – before there was a playoff, you just kind of took all comers because it was – for most teams, unrealistic to have any shot at like the national championship. Right. It wasn't the goal. The goal was like, all right, what's the best we can do here? Like what's the most number of games we can win? How do we get the most fans in the seats at our stadiums and go to the best bowl game possible?
Exactly.
Even when we went to national championships, sometimes we backed into them. It's not like our 2000, whenever we played LSU, 7?
2007, yeah.
2007, we had 2 losses. And we were just sitting there at the end of the year watching everybody else lose, and then they put us in the national championship game. But it wasn't like you didn't plan your year around trying to make that. Everybody's just like, okay, across the country, our schedule's laid out. We'll try to win every one. You thought it was kind of great to have the opportunity to have those, like, we went out to USC and got throttled, okay? But it was like, that was still a cool game to have on your schedule. And I don't think everybody felt like, oh, that – maybe the coaches did, but I still thought it was a cool experience having a home and home with them because then they came to, and they actually beat us both times, but I still think it was like, that's what you want in those early games.
They stole that second one though. They stole it.
Yeah, we actually had that one. We played pretty well.
Coach Fickle keep calling 2-man and got Ross on their best player was a running back in the past. That was the only reason why we lost that game. Sorry, Fick. Sorry, Fick, but I'm gonna throw you under the bus on this one, man.
He made McKnight look like Reggie Bush that night. I was like, who is that guy? But I mean, this is the fallout of changing a thing that is been a certain way for a long time, which was college football, that didn't matter as much, that now you put like a tournament in place that you have to make it into and make that the goal for everybody. Then people are going to start protecting themselves, which I don't love. So I hope they try to figure a way to, I don't know.
I have no problem with it. I have 0 problem with it because they're going to play those teams in the playoffs anyway, right? Those teams, if they're fortunate to ever make it, You'll see Ohio State versus Tennessee in the playoffs. Ohio State versus Texas in the playoffs. Ohio State versus Notre Dame in the playoffs. That's enough for me. Right? I saw every matchup I wanted to see in a 4-month stretch. So in early in the year, I just want you to get prepared for those types of games. But it's definitely a different.
Football is changing. That's the one thing.
Tim, you want to would you watch what if you watched a whole NFL season and every game just sucked until you got to the playoff? You're just like, oh, okay. That's not a good product for a whole year. We don't want to sit through a whole year of just like being 25-point favorites.
But you have your conference schedule, and you have the USC, Penn States, the Oregons, Michigan, etc. Like that's enough drama for me, right? What we do versus Michigan is enough for me to stress over for an entire year. Right? Are we going to beat Oregon early in the year? Like that's enough for me to stress. I don't need to see Texas. I don't even want to see Texas over. I don't want to think about Texas at all. I want to be challenged with Penn State, Oregon, USC. The conference has expanded, right?
Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking like I'm still not adapted, Chim. I'm still not ready to let go and have this new version.
In the old ways,
I'm stuck in the old because I think like when you talk about it, some of the most memorable games, really that any Ohio State fan in the past 20 years talks about, are those random weird out of conference games. It was like when Texas came to Ohio State, like when I think it was Vince Young was there. People still talk about that game, and because it was just like out there. We still talk about like one of the most lively games of that 08 season, or was it 09, was when USC came to town. Now, like we lost. It still didn't feel like it ruined our year. We still went on and had a really good year, went to a BCS bowl, but it was like I like that quirk of college football. I'm not in a race to perfect a playoff system for college football. It's going to be a hot take. I don't really care as much about the playoff. It's not. I'm not as like excited about like how do we make sure we get the playoff right. The experience of the college football season to me is the thing. The college football season is college football, and that's why I want to see things still be interesting in the season, and not just have everything be a build up for this 12-team tournament. I mean, while it was wildly entertaining, it was really good, but I still like the season. Is to me, that's the meal. The season is the thing. The playoff is the dessert still.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I like the big games. And for one, it put eyes on the TV, right? I mean, like it's a Saturday night, who's playing tonight, right? Every Saturday night is just some random one-off game. Like, no, I want to see like two big guys, two big teams from different conferences get together early in the season. And then we kind of make a determination, like, okay, whose season? Like, okay, this is the real contender here. You just seen the way they did, Florida State on a road game. Like, this is obviously Florida State is down, but example, this is a team like everybody should be kind of have their eyes on and pay attention to. So yeah, it's just college football is changing. Like you said, I think it's not the players, it's admin. Admin is making decisions, right? Trying to make sure they are, making money, trying to make money, because everything comes back to the NIL now, right? And they're doing the right things to make those decisions, and it's just different. But last thing I wanted to ask you guys about, because now that we're talking about the playoffs a lot, it did come out that they are going to look at doing some type of reseeding here of the teams. Obviously, this past season, Ohio State won it all. But if he was Oregon, who was ranked the number one team in the nation, he was a little bit upset that your first game had to be against Ohio State, who was arguably one of the better teams, obviously, in the 12-team playoffs. Any thoughts on that? On is that a good thing, or should we just seed them? You land when you land, you play them out. You got to play a good team anyway. That's what most people would say. But what's your thought on that?
Everybody has a complaint about the playoffs. And so I wasn't a big supporter of expanding the playoffs initially. But now that we're here, you got 12 teams that get in. 12. There's 12 teams that get in. And the number one seed ends up playing, whatever, maybe the 7th or the 8th seed based on whoever they play. At the end of the day, you got to beat teams to win the championship. If Oregon didn't play Ohio State in that round, they would have had to play them at some point to win the championship. So I do think there may be a benefit to reseeding after that first round. But at the end of the day, I'm not too concerned about how the playoffs were set up because, I think once you get into the playoffs, it's going to be good teams versus other good teams. And maybe you get a favorable matchup week 1, but at some point you're going to match up against a heavyweight, and you got to win to continue to move on. And, Oregon ended up playing a team that they already beat earlier in the year. It was a team that they already beat, right? So at the end of the day, and it's a team that finished basically third in the Big Ten. Yeah. And Oregon was the number 1 team in the Big Ten. So at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to have to play one of those teams.
Well, I mean, I think
to win. Dane, before you go, one more. Let me add this little more piece to it. I think one of the biggest things that was looking at with the seeding was eliminating the conference champions getting that automatic bye. They wanted to maybe look at the best 4 teams get those spots compared to the conference, which I guess kind of helped shape things. We start looking at Arizona State and where they landed. So
yeah. I would be for that, and I was for that when people were suggesting it, when we were still in the playoff. Just because if you were going to seed, there's no reason to the whole point of seeding a tournament is you're rewarded with an easier path the better you played during the regular season. So if you're going to seed it, you got to seed it correctly, and if you let every conference champ jump their seed, it kind of throws everything off. It makes the whole process not really make sense. Like the NCAA tournament, it's seeded that way so that your regular season matters. You want the 1 seed because you technically have a better path. You don't have to have really, really tough games until you get into the Sweet 16, Elite 8. Theoretically, obviously things happen. But so, yeah, I would think I really liked the idea of letting conference champions have a place, but then you're still seeded off what your ranking was. You're still seeded in an appropriate way because, like you said, Chim, Ohio State was, what did we finish, 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten? Well, yeah, I mean, that's not a product of, I don't think they were the 3rd best team in the Big Ten. No. So that's when you have 18 teams in a conference, how much do you even trust that? That you're the 3rd best team, because Ohio State wasn't. They just didn't have a chance to play in the conference. They beat Penn State, who was the 2nd best team. So, yeah, I like the reseeding if you're going to go to 12. And I do think that, to me, the coolest thing, and this I'm going to continue to fight for keeping cool college things while Chim tries to professionalize it, is how cool that those home campus games are. I think that should serve as a reward, the more of the tragedy for Oregon was not that they had to play Ohio State, is that they were the number 1 team and they didn't even get to have a game on their campus. You know how hard it would have been to go win at Oregon? We got to play them at the Rose Bowl, which, yeah, it's out there, but that's pretty much that's a neutral site. Yeah. I feel like the biggest benefit you could have is if you played that well during the season, if the championship had to go through Eugene, we could have been looking at a different situation. I'm not saying Ohio State wouldn't have gone in there and won, but it was clearly hard. It was really hard the first time, and anybody that would have had to. So much less, I was at the Tennessee game. That was one of the best environments all season. And I think you could see that kind of throughout, was that how cool those home campus games are. Because I just think college football works on campuses. It's fun on campuses. So, yeah, I think once by reseeding, hopefully you get a little bit. I just hope there's more of a reward for those really good teams to get to have another game at home, because I think it was more of a benefit. Ohio State, I think, was really lucky this year to have it, because I think that was their springboard.
That's a good point, and I think the reason why you cancel in-season game versus a Tennessee or whoever, it's because you're trying to get a home game in the playoffs. Yeah. If you could bring, forget about the national championship. If you're Nebraska and you can get for that season a home playoff game, you know how great that is for everything that you put into it, for your fans and everything. Yeah. That would be just a great experience. Seriously. And something that, so
that's the goal, right? Right. Yeah, and I could get on board with you for that. If you're saying cancel these because our goal is to get a home playoff game, I could see that because any university ought to want that. It's one thing to like go play at a cool NFL stadium, but it's just not the same. And how cool was it to like randomly have Tennessee fans in Columbus?
Right.
It's just like they would have never gotten to see this campus. We probably won't play Tennessee. We hadn't played them since like 98 or something. Mm-hmm. You know, and all across I'm with you, Chim. I was also kind of a skeptic on the 12 team in the expansion of the playoff. And even after the first round, I was like, that was silly. These were all blowouts. And I was like, but I came off it like 2 weeks later and I was like, actually, those were really fun. Like Indiana at Notre Dame was really cool. Like these, like, you know, Clemson, Texas, these were very unique games and that was probably the most exciting 2 days where there was those first rounds. Like we didn't know what we were getting and they were all on campus. So I hope they find a way to highlight that moving forward.
Yeah, like the defensive and offensive linemen of Tennessee coming out with their shirts off, warming up. And, like I say warming up, but they really got colder.
Yeah, just like weird stuff like that. Like Indiana Notre Dame being like the most expensive ticket ever because you randomly got these two Indiana schools who never play each other, finally playing each other. So I guess that's kind of aside from the reseeding, though. I think reseeding makes sense. I think it only makes sense. Like, yes, you should be able to get in if you win your conference, because I do think there's value in having a path for those smaller conferences, like having a path for SMU to get in, because you don't want to close off a whole side of college football by just doing it by rankings. You want it to be well represented. So get them in. And then of the 12 you have that have bids in, then do it from what you think the best you can, best to worst. I think that's the fairest way to do any ranked tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good conversation this evening, man. We were with
you think we solved all the problems?
I think we have.
Yeah, man. It's just, things are changing, and that's college football across the nation. Everyone kind of has to adjust a little bit. Like I said, some wrinkles to it. Hopefully they get ironed out, or maybe they just kind of keep it the wild, wild west, and we would talk about it and live it as Buckeye fans. So, but Dan, we really appreciate you taking your time, jumping on with us. Obviously, we went over a lot of topics, but I think it was very good content. I don't know. Chim will figure something out with the editing on this, man. I don't know. It was definitely fun. We appreciate it. We're going to end this show like we always do with a nice OH.
Ayo, come on, Dan.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know if because how we are on my screen, we're 1, 2, 3. So I think he was going to do the O. You do like HI, and I would do an O.
Come on, Dan. You killing me, man.
I'm not going to 3-person. There's 4 letters and there's 3 of us. I didn't know how we were going to do it. Sorry.
I do the OH, y'all do IO. It's Ohio, man. I got to make all.
I get how to spell it. I'm just like, there's 3 of us. I didn't. You didn't know how.
Come on, Dan.
You didn't tell me that ahead of time. Okay, IO.
Come on, Dan.
All right, we'll get it next time. You'll have to have me back so we can learn that plane a little better.
That's right. We appreciate it.